Trump wants a peaceful end to the war between Russia and Ukraine. The bloody fascist. What is fascist again?
Thank you for choosing Fox News.
No, here's the news.
Hello there, you 6 million awakening wonders. Thanks for joining me on this voyage towards peace, hopefully peace. If you don't subscribe yet, subscribe right now and turn on the notification bell. And remember, we stream live every day on Rumble at these times. We go deep into the subjects you care about. We talk to guests that would not be allowed on the mainstream media, talking about subjects that they would strike and ban. Join us there every day. Now, let's get to today's story. What is Trump up to with these rallies? Is he going to run in 2024? Who knows? Anyway, most recently, his most bold transgression is that he said that there should be a peaceful solution in the war between Russia and Ukraine. Let's have a look at what that fascist Trump said now, the peace-loving fascist pig.
We must demand the immediate negotiation of a peaceful end to the war in Ukraine, or we will end up in World War III and there will be nothing left of our planet, all because stupid people didn't have a clue. They didn't have a clue. Clue.
I think what he's saying is difficult to argue with. We are engaged in a conflict, a proxy war, some have said, between the United States and Russia, both of whom are nuclear powers. And it's not that long ago, there was a contentious, long Cold War. The immediate aftermath of the Second World War led to two polarized powers. And, in the 80s and 90s, the Eastern Bloc somewhat crumbled. Russia reformed. Now Putin has risen to this position of supremacy. And many people say, and doubtless it's true, that he's the kind of person that would be able to run a mighty nation like Russia and would have the kind of imperialist underpinnings that you would anticipate. Doubtless this war between Russia and Ukraine has complications. Doubtless the war between Russia and Ukraine is causing a humanitarian crisis. But once again, we find ourselves in a position where it's left to Donald Trump to say things that other people should be saying. Donald Trump is saying there needs to be a diplomatic solution or we might find ourselves in a nuclear war. Do you not think that that's a legitimate point? Do you not think that should be utmost in your considerations? In this instance, you've got to be grateful that there's someone with a pulpit saying, I don't want a nuclear war, thanks.
They really don't understand. I rebuilt our military.
I rebuilt it. Like, he's got sort of a way of talking that makes you literally imagine him doing stuff to a tank and sewing uniforms and coaching people over those walls that the Marines have to climb. He's got a brilliantly solipsistic and wonderfully raw narcissism. And it shows you that there is a dearth of viable political alternatives, that seems like the most attractive option. Rather than someone that's, doddering about, hopeless, that's spent their entire career taking corporate money, that can't deliver, that says they're going to release people from prison that aren't in prison, that's the cannabis story, that says they're going to control drug prices and we beat pharma this year in a way that didn't make no difference to pharma. We're going to make Saudi Arabia a pariah. We're just going to carry on business as usual with Saudi Arabia. If that's what's normal, then anything alternative to that is going to seem reasonable. Now, if war becomes normal, if that's the assumed position, we're in a war with Russia, we're going to continue that war, or this seems a bit like what went on in Iraq, crossed with what went on in Afghanistan, a perpetual war that's beneficial to the military-industrial complex. We can't keep promoting to the forefront of our culture adversary and condemnation of the other without looking at what our own political positions are.
I rebuilt our nuclear power. They don't understand what they're dealing with, the power of nuclear.
They should understand the power of nuclear. I mean, we've all seen the films and the image. Former United States President Donald Trump has called for an immediate peaceful end to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. That seems okay. I hope there are not American talk shows like that are now saying, Donald Trump's been at it again, that crazy cuckoo son of a bitch, asking for peace. Trump's remarks come after Joe Biden's warning over the risk of nuclear Armageddon. Let me present you with an idea. Have you been coached into a state of idiocy? Because when Joe Biden says, if things don't change, we're on the brink of Armageddon, he's the president of the United States of America. He is in a position of some authority. He's not a news reporter, is he? Like, oh no, look what's happening. Russia, there's going to be Well, why don't you change tact? Why don't you do something different? Why don't you change the shape of the negotiation? You're not like a bystander, unless, of course, you sort of are. Unless, of course, the office of president is a sort of theatrical role. Unless Joe Biden is a kind of puppet. Let me know in the chat, let me know in the comments what you think. Why isn't Joe Biden saying, look, the way things are going with Russia's imperialist intentions, it looks like we could head to a nuclear war. That's why I, as your president, will assure you right now and ensure that this situation isn't going to head towards an apocalypse, because obviously, even though there's lots of complexity here, it's pretty obvious, even to a bloody idiot, that the worst of all possible scenarios is a nuclear Armageddon. I can't think of a worse one. Like, what would be worse than that? Like, also, we blew up Saturn as well. Also, the concept of God is gone now. Also, submolecular stuff. I mean, like, a nuclear war, that's literally the doomsday scenario, isn't it? Compared to nuclear Armageddon, which we're all sort of not properly factoring, anything is favourable, isn't it? Let me know in the chat, let me know in the comments. I hope I'm not simplifying this, but some things do seem quite simple, like end of world, not end of world. I mean, that's relatively binary, isn't it? Biden told Democratic donors in New York that for the first time since the Cuban Missile Crisis, we have a direct threat from the use of nuclear weapons if things continue down the path they're going. He sounded like he's sat on a porch chewing a bit of straw. He should be in there going, right, let's not go down this path anymore. Let's change direction, because, you know, I don't really want to be the president of the United States that presided over the end of the world. That might be a bit of a blot on the old copybook. During an interview on Saturday morning's Real America's Voice, a right-wing network, Trump accused the US and its leadership of goading Putin into waging a botched invasion of Ukraine on February the 24th. They actually taunted him. If you really look at it, our country and our so-called leadership taunted Putin, Trump said. I'd like to hear him say that. They taunted him. They taunted Putin.
They actually taunted him.
I would listen. I would say, you know, they're almost forcing him to go in with what they're saying. The rhetoric was so dumb. Trump did not provide any examples of how the US or President Joe Biden taunted Putin or what the supposedly dumb rhetoric was. He's Trump. Earlier in the interview, the former president claimed that the war between Russia and Ukraine would never have happened if he'd won the election and served a second term. He's always making these claims. Ukraine and Russia would not be fighting, Trump claimed. It doesn't mean they'd love each other, but there's no way they'd be fighting, and there's no way Putin would have actually gone in. Let me know in the chat, let me know in the comments. Do you think this war would have happened if Trump had been president? In the build-up to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Trump claimed, I knew Putin very well. I got along with him great. On talk shows now, they're going, yeah, you certainly did. He liked me, I liked him. I mean, you know, he's a tough cookie. Got a lot of the great charm, a lot of pride, loves his country. He sees them as a couple of mates, doesn't he? A couple of mates running countries. But what's all this costing us, and where is the money going? And when I say us, I mean US. So that's not us at all, because I don't think you can tell from my accent, I'm not from there. Some analysts estimate the true figure of the US commitment to Ukraine is up to $40 billion in security assistance, or $110 million a day over the last year. Is that money well spent? Can you see anything in American cultural life that you would prefer to have that money spent on? Does it surprise you that there's an easy highway for that money to travel towards the military-industrial complex, and some would say to the military more generally, and it's more difficult to get those resources into American infrastructure and also into the lives of ordinary American people? The relentless stream of funding announcements, in the absence of any public discussion of what the US is doing to seek an end to the conflict, has signalled to critics a recognition that there is no end in sight to the war, and that the US is committed to supporting Ukrainian defence efforts for the long haul rather than pursue a negotiated end to it. Now, of course, what Noam Chomsky thinks is the most likely outcome is the absolute annihilation of Ukraine. What recent history suggests is the American military-industrial complex would like an ongoing entrenched war where tax expenditure can be diverted towards weapons manufacturers, etc. I don't know enough to say for sure that that's the desired outcome, but what I would say is a factor that ought to be considered is that if Putin is a madman or a strategist, whatever he is, he's got nuclear weapons. So it seems like a bit of a risky game. Like, I mean, I love a gamble, but do you gamble when your whole life and the planet's future is contingent upon it? Let me know in the chat, let me know in the comments. I really enjoy this guy's videos. He's brilliant, isn't he? But wouldn't you like even more of him? As you know, we are streaming every day on Rumble at these times. Now, if you are a fan of our podcast, Under the Skin, you've got to become a member of Stay Free AF. That is our community where you get even more fantastic content as a member. We're creating more free content than ever and better paid for content than you could ever imagine. We've already done interviews with Vandana Shiva, Wim Hof, Gabor Mate, Noam Chomsky. Coming up, we're going to be speaking to Donald, Bernie, Elon. I'll give you the surnames once we confirm the interviews. All of these interviews will be available on Stay Free AF, as well as my stand-up special that's going to drop in December, our community film, and opportunities to join me for live events regularly throughout the year. Stay free as fuck. There's a link below to join. The US is really preparing for a long war. It's actually preparing for endless war in Ukraine, said Stefan Semler, co-founder of the Security Policy Reform Institute. The US government has pumped more money and weapons into supporting the Ukrainian military than it sent in 2020 to Afghanistan, Israel and Egypt combined, surpassing in a matter of months 3 of the largest recipients of US military aid in history. Up to half of the $14 trillion spent by the Pentagon since 9/11 went to for-profit defense contractors, a study found. That's not my word, that's a study. That's $7 trillion to defense contractors. Now, are you beginning to see what the motivation might be for not immediately curtailing this war and coming to peaceful terms? Do you think that in a capitalist system with a strong military-industrial complex that spend a lot of money on lobbying, that have a lot of people in Congress that own shares in those organizations, do you think that that $7 trillion would have any influence? Because we're not talking about the Dalai Lama here. We're not talking about someone who thinks that the material world is an illusion and what matters is the spiritual world. Oh, it don't matter what's happening out there, it don't really affect me. We're talking about a financially oriented system, aren't we? So probably is a factor, isn't it? Let me know in the chat, let me know in the comments what you think. The Ukrainian news outlet Ukrainska Pravda reported that British Prime Minister Boris Johnson used his surprise visit to Kiev, surprise, to pressure President Zelensky to cut off peace negotiations. Surprise! Listen, it's cut off the peace negotiations with Russia. Oh yeah, but surely you don't want people to continue to die. Surprise! I do. To cut off peace negotiations with Russia, even after the two sides appeared to have made tenuous progress towards a settlement to end the war. The British government has become an obstacle to peace in Ukraine by encouraging the continuation of the war through huge arms shipments and incendiary rhetoric. Oh, you think arms shipments and incendiary rhetoric is likely to increase the war? Those arms shipments and incendiary rhetoric were for a surprise birthday party. Lindsay German, the convener of the UK-based Stop the War Coalition, said in a statement, although I added the bit about it being a surprise birthday party. So there you go. It seems there are a lot of vested interest in keeping that war going, and the only voice advocating for peace in a meaningful way within the mainstream media, even though, let's face it, he's somewhat marginalised, is Donald Trump. So at what point do you accept voices advocating for peace wherever they come from? What do you want? Nuclear war or your pride? Nuclear war or increased profits for the military-industrial complex? What do you want? This is a time where we have to ask ourselves pretty serious questions. Let me know what the answers are in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, have a look at either of these. Please sign up to our mailing list. We stream live every day on Rumble at these times. And if you become a subscriber, there's some fantastic content available for you there, although the main stuff is free every day. Stay free.